Alright, Victorum Gaming fans and fans for Victory at Sea, new game from Warlord Games. We're back with another video. Today we're actually going to cover what it says here, the basics. So basically taking a look at a ship's stat card and figuring out what does all this information mean. So as it says here, we're going to just kind of take it in turn, and they're kind of showing us an example of the Northampton class. Every ship in the game is defined by its ship card, detailing all the information you need to play with that ship. And then again, our example class here, so the Northampton, and you can already see some easy to figure out info, like the points cost, for example, and the type of ship it is. But what does all this other information mean? So the class name is the name of the class of the warship, obviously. A list of individual ships of that class are named on the back of the card. So there's, for example, in this demo set, there's the Northampton itself, and then the Chicago, among others. So the type describes the size and function of the ship in Victory at Sea, such as destroyer, cruiser, carrier, battleship, and maybe we'll get submarines at some point. Points value, that's up in the top right here. So type was here. Points value is up here for you guys. So every ship has an associated point value which reflects how powerful a ship is relative to all others. Points values are used when you're playing scenarios and stuff like that, and match play and so on and so forth. So 130 points. So in comparison, the Fletchers, I think, are 60, so you can kind of get an idea of how that scales up there. And then something like the Yamato is like 1,000 points. So for super heavy battleships there. Flank speed is the maximum distance in inches you can usually move in a single turn. So 6. A little bit slower than similar Japanese ships, but not necessarily all that bad either. Armor, which we'll cover when we look at the different phases of the turn, so like shooting and so on. But the higher the value here, the better armored the ship is, and the longer it'll be able to withstand incoming fire. So 2 up doesn't mean you make an armor save of 2 or better, which would be really good. It just means basically that for any damage that you would take, your armor absorbs 2 from each of those systems or sources of damage. Basically, look at it that way. So it's pretty solid overall for a cruiser. Some cruisers have a little bit more, some lighter ones maybe a little bit less. Destroyers, for example, just have a 1-up, at least the Fletcher and the Fubuki from this set. Things like battleships might have like a 5 or 6 or more, something like that. So just to give you an idea. So the higher the value, of course, the better, as it says here. Hull is basically the damage you can take. So the first figure shows the ship's hull, how much you can take before you're destroyed, so your total hull points. The second is the point at which you've taken enough damage to be crippled, and on the card above, so once the Hampton takes 16 points of damage, still afloat, but it's reduced her to 7 overall, then she's crippled. So to see that here, so all your hull points are going to be listed as basically 2 numbers, looks like a fraction almost, but divided by a slash there. So 23 total hull. Once she's down to 7, so in other words, she's taken 16 damage, then she's crippled, and that has all kinds of bad effects for you. And then weapon systems. So most warships have multiple weapon systems, all of which are detailed here. Each line in this section details a single system. So light guns would be one system, turret A, turret B, etc. Every weapon system is defined by its fire arc, range. So there's point blank, short, long, and extreme. Number of attack dice you use, any armor piercing rating. So basically, you'll need that to actually damage some of the heavier armed ships reliably, and then damage dice dealt when a hit is scored. Some weapon systems also have traits, so basically special rules associated with them. Those are defined later, and we'll cover that in a separate video. And then last but not least, any additional info. So on the back you'll find some biographical information, list of any refits made to the ships in the class during the course of the war. Note that refits are cumulative, so all refits up to and including a specific year are applied. So basically you can play at actually specific points of the war, and some ships might have fewer guns earlier on, might get refitted with more guns, more AA, stuff like that. So really cool, and allows you to realistically game the different phases of the war. So taking a look at the Northampton then, and it does have another trait here, so aircraft 4, but that basically just means you'll have the ability to launch some like spotting aircraft and stuff like that, which we'll cover again in another video. So we have 3 main turrets here, so A turret, B turret, and X turret. So those are all separate systems, and they basically all have 270-degree arcs. The A and B are the forward ones, and then X is the rear-facing one there. So to get them all, to get all three, basically, you're gonna have to go off and shoot like on one of your broadsides, and then they have a pretty solid range. So point blank is 8, short 16, long 24, extreme 32. They throw 3 attack dice each. And then, assuming you do cause damage, it would be 1 dice per hit, basically, of damage potential. So, so not necessarily all that heavy hitting. You do have a decent amount of dice to throw, though. But against similar lighter cruisers, destroyers, if you can hit them, you can definitely that 1 damage dice is plenty. But taking on something like a heavy battleship or something like that, you're going to struggle a little bit if you're just having something like this. It's got a series of light guns as well. So it's basically got 8 5-inch guns, and ranges on those are 3, 7, 11, and 15. 6 dice. AP is -2, so they're pretty weak at causing damage reliably, so you're going to have to roll high there, and they also still just roll the 1 damage dice. And then they have some traits. Dual purpose allows you to use your full amount actually shooting at aircraft, which is really cool. Restricted, basically, because it represents the guns basically being on the port and starboard sides, so you get half your dice basically when you're shooting with them. But you can essentially target things in a 360-degree arc as a result. And then weak is also dealing with basically issues with dealing with armor. And then AA is just a local 1, so not all that much specific AA guns. So, and then the game kind of typically uses these tabs. You've seen that in Cruel Seas and Black Seas to sort of keep track of your damage. Some people like them, some people hate them. Generally, especially with some of the ships that have larger hull point pools and stuff like that. And I know, at least for me, I think I'm probably going to be using like D10s and stuff like that just to keep track of it. Might just be a little bit easier than keeping track of the little cardboard tabs. But that is basically, as it says, the basics for the game. So being able to understand a ship's stat card like that and understand what's going on, it does seem like there's a lot of information there, but once you kind of understand what is what, it's actually not all that difficult to get. So hope you guys enjoyed that video. Give us a like if you could, and a subscribe if you haven't already, and then stay tuned for more content.